I warned him, clear as day, in writing, with signatures. But he thought I was just the cute little tech girl, his favorite joke in front of the whole office. 2 months later, he blew up $200K worth of production equipment and tried to pin it on me. Except nobody could blame me when I had everything, every email, every inspection report, every warning sign he'd ignored. That's when I started planning. My name is Emily Carr, and I've been a maintenance supervisor at Forgin Dynamics for 6 years. 6 years of watching this place transform from a decent mid-sized manufacturer into a pressure cooker of impossible deadlines and corner cutting. We make industrial equipment, the kind that keeps factories running, hospitals powered, military bases operational. The kind where a single failure can cost lives. I'm 32, Colorado born and raised, with an engineering degree from CU Boulder that I worked nights to pay for. Not that it matters much here. To most of the management team, I'm still just the girl in maintenance, the one they call when something breaks but ignore when I tell them it's about to. Forgin's headquarters sits in an industrial park outside Travis, all glass and steel trying to look more impressive than it is. Inside, it's the same beige cubicle farm you'd find anywhere, except our basement houses millions of dollars in precision manufacturing equipment I'm responsible for keeping alive. My direct supervisor is Cal Becker, Director of Operations. 45, divorced twice, drives a lifted F-350 he can barely climb into. The kind of man who calls grown women sweetheart in meetings and thinks safety regulations are suggestions. He's been here 12 years, knows where all the bodies are buried, plays golf with the CEO every other Sunday. Cal hired me himself, back when he needed someone competent enough to handle the technical work, but naive enough to accept 30% less than market rate. I learned fast, learned to document everything, learned to speak up in meetings even when he'd talk over me, learned to CC half the company on important emails because Cal had a habit of forgetting conversations that didn't suit him. The past 8 months had been hell. We'd landed a massive contract with the Department of Defense, our biggest ever. Production ramped up to levels our equipment was never designed to sustain. I'd submitted report after report recommending upgrades, preventive maintenance schedules, additional safety measures. Cal's response was always the same. We'll address it after we fulfill the contract. The maintenance team under me was down to 4 people from 7. Budget cuts, Cal said. Though I'd seen the executive parking lot fill up with new BMWs and Teslas. My guys worked 60-hour weeks keeping our aging equipment running. We held it together with industrial tape, prayer, and the kind of technical wizardry you only learn from years of making do with nothing. Every morning, I'd walk the floor at 5 a.m., coffee in one hand, tablet in the other, checking every piece of equipment like a doctor doing rounds. I knew every sound, every vibration, every tiny deviation from normal. Machine number 4, the massive air compression system that powered half our assembly line, had started singing a different tune 3 weeks ago. A high-pitched whine that made my teeth ache. That's the thing about being good at your job when you're a woman in a male-dominated field. You have to be twice as good to get half the credit. But when something goes wrong, you get all the blame. So I documented everything, every inspection, every anomaly, every conversation. Not because I was paranoid, but because I'd learned that being right wasn't enough. You had to prove you were right, repeatedly, with evidence that would hold up in court. Cal liked to joke that I was too uptight about safety. Relax, Emily, he'd say, usually when other managers were around to laugh along. The equipment's not going to explode just because you missed one inspection. He'd pat me on the shoulder like I was an overeager intern instead of the person keeping his entire operation from grinding to a halt. But machine number 4 wasn't joking. And in 2 weeks, when I'd submit my formal report about the failing compression valves and contaminated filters, Cal would make the decision that would destroy everything. He just didn't know it yet. The morning I discovered the problem with machine number 4, the factory floor hummed with its usual chaos. I'd just finished my inspection when I noticed it, a barely perceptible drop in pressure readings, coupled with that distinctive whine that meant metal fatigue. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a minor issue. I spent 3 hours documenting everything. Pressure readings, decibel levels, temperature fluctuations, vibration patterns. I took thermal images showing the hot spots where the safety valves were beginning to fail. The contamination in the air filters was visible even without magnification. Metal shavings that meant internal components were grinding themselves to death. The repair would cost $2,100, 2 safety valves, a complete filter replacement, and 8 hours of downtime. In the grand scheme of our multi-million-dollar operation, it was pocket change, but I knew Cal would see it differently. I wrote the report that afternoon. Technical details, risk assessment, cost breakdown. I rated it priority 1, immediate action required. The consequences of failure weren't hypothetical. When compressed air systems fail, they don't just stop working, they explode, 800 psi of pressure looking for the weakest point to escape. I'd seen the aftermath photos from other facilities, shrapnel, burns, fatalities. I submitted the report at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Cal's response came back at 4:15. See me in my office. His office overlooked the production floor, a glass box where he could watch his kingdom without getting his hands dirty. The walls were covered with certificates of appreciation, photos of him shaking hands with military brass, a mounted base he claimed to have caught but everyone knew he'd bought. Emily, he said without looking up from his computer. This report, you're recommending we shut down line 4? For 8 hours, yes. The safety valves. Do you have any idea what our daily production target is? He finally looked at me, that condescending smile playing at his lips. Any idea what 8 hours of downtime costs? More than someone's life? He laughed, actually laughed. Don't be dramatic. You're always doing this, making everything sound like a crisis. The equipment's old, it makes noise. That's what old equipment does. Cal, I have thermal imaging showing. I don't care if you have a message from God himself. We're not shutting down line 4, not when we're already behind schedule. He leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head. You know what your problem is? You overthink everything. Maybe that's why you're still single. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste blood. This isn't about my personal life. This is about safety. Everything's about safety with you. Safety this, safety that. You know what's not safe? Missing our delivery deadline, losing this contract, having to lay off half the floor because little Miss Engineer thinks a funny noise means the sky is falling. I pulled out my tablet, showed him the thermal images. Look at these readings. The valve temperature is 40 degrees above normal. The pressure fluctuations. Will it last 2 more months? I can't guarantee. I didn't ask for a guarantee. I asked if it would last 2 more months. Maybe. If we reduce the load, run additional cooling, then make it last. He turned back to his computer. Update your report. Schedule the maintenance for after we complete the DoD order. I need that in writing. His head snapped up. Excuse me? If you're ordering me to delay critical maintenance, I need it in writing. The smile disappeared. You know, Emily, for someone who complains about not being taken seriously, you sure don't know how to be a team player. I'll be a team player when the team isn't playing Russian roulette with people's lives. He opened his desk drawer, pulled out a maintenance deferment form, standard company paperwork for exactly this situation. He filled it out with aggressive pen strokes, signed it, then slid it across the desk. There. Happy? Now update your report and get back to work. And Emily? He waited until I was at the door. Next time you want to cover your ass, try being a little less obvious about it. I made 3 copies of that form. 1 for my files, 1 for my home safe, and 1 that I scanned and emailed to my personal account. I updated the report as ordered, noting the deferment with Cal's signature. I also sent a follow-up email summarizing our conversation, copying the maintenance team and the safety officer. Cal responded within minutes. As discussed, maintenance has been rescheduled. Let's focus on meeting our commitments. 2 months. He wanted 2 more months out of equipment that could fail any day. I'd given him every warning possible, documented every risk, provided every opportunity to make the right decision. Now all I had to do was wait. and keep everyone as far from machine number 4 as possible when it finally gave up. It happened on a Thursday, 63 days after Cal signed that deferment form. I was in the break room when the explosion shook the building. Coffee mugs shattered on the floor, alarms shrieking, the lights flickering before the emergency power kicked in. I knew before I even made it to the floor. Machine number 4 had finally given up. The scene was chaos. The safety valve hadn't just failed, it had launched like a missile, punching through the acoustic ceiling tiles and embedding itself in the roof structure. The compression tank had ruptured, sending a shock wave that knocked over 2 adjacent workstations. Flames licked at the hydraulic lines, fed by atomized oil that sparkled in the air like deadly glitter. Thank God I'd managed to keep that section mostly clear during peak hours. Only minor injuries, cuts from flying debris. A few burns from the oil spray. It could have been so much worse, should have been worse. The automatic suppression system kicked in, foam blanketing the flames while everyone evacuated. I stayed behind with the emergency response team, documenting everything. The blast pattern, the failure point, the trajectory of debris. My hands were steady even as my mind raced. This was evidence. This was vindication. This was also the end of my career if I didn't play it perfectly. By the time Cal arrived, the fire department had cleared the building for re-entry. He stood at the edge of the destruction, his face the color of spoiled milk. The production line was devastated, not just machine number 4, but the entire compression system. 2 assembly stations, part of the electrical grid. The smell of burnt metal and chemicals hung thick in the air. Preliminary estimate is $200,000 in equipment damage, the facilities manager said quietly. 3 weeks minimum to get back online. Cal's eyes found me across the room. For a moment, I saw fear there. Then it hardened into something else. Calculation, survival instinct. The emergency meeting was called for 4 p.m. Executive conference room, all department heads, HR, legal. I wasn't invited, but I could see them through the glass walls. Cal gesturing wildly, pointing at charts, shaking his head. I knew what was happening. I'd seen this dance before. At 5:30, Linda from HR found me in my office. Emily, I need you to come with me. The small conference room smelled like stress sweat and bad coffee. Cal sat at one end of the table, flanked by 2 executives I recognized but had never spoken to. Legal pad in front of him covered with notes. Emily, Linda began, her voice carefully neutral. We need to discuss the equipment failure today. You mean the explosion I warned about 2 months ago? Cal leaned forward. That's exactly what we need to discuss. Your failure to properly maintain critical equipment. I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. I have documentation. We've reviewed your reports. One of the executives interrupted. But Cal has raised concerns about their accuracy. Specifically, that you may have exaggerated the urgency to cover for deferred maintenance on your watch. That's a lie. Is it? Cal pulled out a folder. I have records showing you've been consistently behind on routine maintenance schedules. You've been overwhelmed, undertrained. Because you cut my team by 40%. And now you're trying to shift blame for your negligence? He slid papers across the table. Falsified maintenance logs with my forged signature. Schedule sheets showing work I'd never signed off on. This is your signature, isn't it? My blood turned to ice. He'd prepared for this. Spent 2 months creating a paper trail that didn't exist. Those are forgeries. That's a serious accusation, legal said quietly. Are you suggesting Mr. Becker fabricated official documents? The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Accuse my boss of fraud without proof, or accept responsibility for the explosion. Either way, I was finished. I want a union representative. You're not union, Linda reminded me gently. Emily, we're trying to understand what happened. But these accusations, this hostility, I have the original reports, the real ones, with Cal's signature deferring maintenance. Cal shrugged. I've never seen any such reports. If they exist, they were created after the fact to cover your mistakes. You son of a... Emily. Linda's voice was sharp. I think it's best if you take some time. You're suspended pending a full investigation. We'll need your badge and company property. This is wrongful termination. It's suspension. Legal corrected. With pay. For now. While we investigate, I suggest you use the time to reconsider your position. These are serious allegations you're making. They escorted me out like a criminal, past my team, past the engineers who wouldn't meet my eyes, past the destruction that validated everything I'd warned them about. The security guard at the desk, Miguel, whose daughter I'd written a recommendation letter for, couldn't look at me as he took my badge. In the parking lot, my hands shook as I started my car, but not from fear, from rage, pure, crystalline rage. Cal thought he'd won, thought he'd buried me under falsified documents and corporate bureaucracy. He had no idea what I'd been collecting for the past 2 months. No idea that every conversation, every email, every decision had been meticulously documented and stored where he couldn't touch it. He wanted to play dirty. Fine. But he should have made sure I didn't have ammunition first. That night, I sat in my home office surrounded by bankers' boxes. 6 years of meticulous documentation. Every email printed and filed, every report saved in triplicate, every interaction logged. Call me paranoid. But when you're a woman in engineering, you learn to protect yourself. I started with the deferment form. Cal's signature bold and unmistakable. Then the emails, dozens of them. His responses dismissing my concerns. The original thermal images from my tablet, timestamps intact. The inspection reports he claimed didn't exist. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. My phone buzzed. Jonah from IT. Heard what happened. That's fucked up. Coffee tomorrow? Jonah Reeves was one of the good ones. Quiet guy, lived in the server room. Probably knew more about Forgin's digital infrastructure than the entire C-suite combined. We'd bonded over late-night system maintenance and a shared hatred of corporate incompetence. We met at a diner downtown, far from any Forgin employees. He slid into the booth, looking nervous. Laptop bag clutched tight. They're saying you sabotaged the equipment, he said without preamble. They're lying. I know. He pulled out his laptop. Cal had me wipe some files from the maintenance server 2 weeks ago. Said it was routine cleanup. But He turned the screen toward me. I don't delete anything without backing it up first. My heart stopped. There they were, my original reports, but with altered timestamps. Cal hadn't just prepared to frame me, he'd been planning it for weeks. There's more, Jonah continued. I got curious about what else he might be hiding. Did some digging into the budget allocations. His fingers flew over the keyboard. Remember that new smart refrigerator system in the executive break room? The one nobody asked for? The $30,000 monstrosity? Try $50,000. Guess where the extra 20 came from? He showed me the trail. Maintenance budget, reallocated through a series of transfers that would have been invisible if you weren't looking. Cal had gutted our safety budget to buy toys for the C-suite, padding the purchase orders to skim money into discretionary funds he controlled. This is fraud, I breathed. This is evidence, Jonah corrected. But here's the thing. I can't give this to you officially. If they find out I accessed these files, I won't let it come back to you. He transferred everything to an encrypted drive. Financial records, email backups, server logs showing when files were accessed and altered. A digital paper trail of Cal's corruption going back 2 years. But I still needed one more piece. The conversation where Cal had explicitly told me to ignore safety protocols. The meeting I'd secretly recorded on my phone, a habit I'd developed after one too many instances of selective memory from management. Colorado is a one-party consent state. The recording was legal. Cal joking about hysterical women and their safety obsession. Him admitting the equipment was failing, but insisting production came first. His exact words, I don't care if it catches fire. We're not stopping that line. I spent the next 3 days organizing everything into a comprehensive package. Not just the explosion, but a pattern of negligence, discrimination, and financial misconduct. I burned copies onto multiple drives, uploaded encrypted backups to cloud servers, and prepared physical documentation sets. Then I did something Cal wouldn't expect. Instead of going to HR or the executives who were clearly protecting him, I sent an anonymous package to the internal audit department. Forgin's auditors were external contractors, not beholden to the good old boys network. They were required by law to investigate credible allegations of financial fraud. The second package went to the Colorado Department of Labor, specifically their Workplace Safety Division. The explosion should have been reported immediately, but I bet Cal had found a way to delay or minimize it. Well, they were about to get the full story. The third package was my insurance policy. My lawyer, Rebecca Chen. Yes, sometimes you need someone who's faced the same discrimination to truly understand, had represented whistleblowers before. She'd know what to do if Forgin tried to bury me completely. But I wasn't done. Cal had tried to destroy my reputation, make me unemployable in this industry. The internal rumor mill was already spinning, painting me as the incompetent diversity hire who'd nearly killed people through negligence. That narrative needed to change. I created a detailed timeline, cross-referencing every piece of evidence. Not a rant or accusation, but a methodical presentation of facts. Safety reports ignored, budget diverted, warnings dismissed. A pattern of behavior that led inevitably to catastrophe. Rebecca advised against it, but I posted it on my LinkedIn. Professional, factual, naming no names but laying out the sequence of events. Within hours, it had been shared dozens of times. Former colleagues, industry contacts, even a few current Forgin employees brave enough to support me publicly. Cal had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I'd fight like he would, dirty, personal, vindictive. But I wasn't interested in destroying him. I just wanted everyone to see exactly who he was when the lights came on. My phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Carr? This is David Park from the audit department. We've received some concerning information. Would you be available to meet with us, officially, this time? I smiled for the first time in days. I'll bring my documentation. The audit meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. I spent the weekend preparing with Rebecca, organizing evidence into a presentation that would be impossible to dismiss. But I had one more card to play. I reached out to Sarah Martinez, Forgin's newly appointed Chief Risk Officer. She'd been brought in 6 months ago from outside the company, which meant she wasn't part of Cal's network. We'd spoken briefly at a company event where she'd mentioned her focus on establishing a culture of accountability. Time to test that commitment. Ms. Akar, she said when I called her direct line, I've been following your situation. I'd like to hear your perspective. I have documentation that goes beyond the explosion. Financial irregularities, systematic safety violations, potential fraud. The audit team has copies, but I think you should see this before it goes external. There was a pause. Can you meet me tomorrow? Early, before the audit meeting. Sunday morning, 7 a.m., in her office. She was already there when I arrived, coffee steaming, legal pad ready. I laid out everything, not just the explosion, but the pattern. The culture Cal had created where production metrics mattered more than lives. The diverted funds, the retaliation against anyone who raised concerns. Her expression never changed, but I saw her knuckles whiten as she gripped her pen. You realize what you're alleging could trigger a federal investigation? I realize what I'm alleging is true. She studied me for a long moment. The board meeting is Tuesday. Cal is presenting his Q3 report and requesting a budget increase for his department. A slight smile. It would be unfortunate if certain information came to light during that presentation. Monday's audit meeting was brutal but validating. 3 external auditors, 2 lawyers, and Sarah Martinez. They grilled me for 4 hours, verifying every document, challenging every claim. By the end, the lead auditor looked physically ill. This goes beyond negligence, he said quietly. This is systematic fraud and willful endangerment. That evening, Sarah called. I need you at tomorrow's board meeting. 2 p.m. You'll be listed as a technical consultant for my risk assessment presentation. Cal didn't know I was coming. I watched from the anteroom as he strutted into the boardroom, all false confidence and practiced charm. His PowerPoint was polished, graphs showing production increases, cost savings, efficiency improvements, taking credit for keeping the plant running despite unexpected equipment failures. Now, he said, clicking to his final slide. I'm requesting a 15% budget increase to address our aging infrastructure and prevent future incidents. That's when Sarah stood. Actually, Cal, before we discuss budget increases, I'd like to present some findings from our risk assessment. Emily, would you join us? The look on his face when I walked in was worth every sleepless night. Pure panic, quickly masked by rage. What is she doing here? She's suspended pending. She's here as a technical consultant. Sarah cut him off smoothly. Emily, please share your analysis of the equipment failure. I connected my laptop to the projector. Click. The deferment form with Cal's signature. Click. The email trail. Click. The thermal images showing critical failure warnings. Click. The maintenance budget allocations highlighting the mysterious transfers. These are fabrications, Cal sputtered. She's trying to cover her own incompetence. Click. The audio played through the conference room speakers. Cal's voice, clear as day. I don't care if it catches fire. We're not stopping that line. The room went silent. I continued methodically through the evidence. Every safety violation, every diverted dollar, every ignored warning. The board members' expressions shifted from skepticism to shock to fury. Mr. Becker, the CEO's voice was deadly quiet. Is this your signature on the deferment form? That's... She pressured me to sign it, said it was procedure. Did she also pressure you to divert $20,000 from safety budgets to purchase unnecessary equipment? Sarah asked, sliding the financial audit across the table. Cal's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I want my lawyer. That's probably wise, the CEO said. Security will escort you out. Your access has been revoked, effective immediately. But Cal wasn't done. He lunged toward me, face purple with rage. You fucking bitch! You set me up! Security caught him before he reached me, but not before the entire board saw his true face. The mask had finally slipped completely. As they dragged him out, still screaming threats and obscenities, I remained perfectly calm. Every word he said was being recorded by the board meeting's official minutes. Evidence of the hostile work environment I'd endured for years. The CEO turned to me. Ms. Carr, on behalf of Forgin Dynamics, I apologize. Your suspension is lifted immediately, with full back pay. Sarah will be leading a complete restructuring of our operations department, and we'd like you to consider... I'll let you know, I said quietly. Right now, I need to ensure my team is safe and the production line is properly repaired. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Emergency sessions, legal consultations, damage control. I walked out quietly, past the cubicles where my story had already spread like wildfire. Cal's office was being sealed by security. Boxes of evidence being removed. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed with messages. Former colleagues, industry contacts, even a few headhunters who'd somehow already heard. But I ignored them all. I'd won. But standing there in the Colorado afternoon sun, I realized something. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. The boardroom eruption was just the beginning. As security dragged Cal out, still raging, the CEO turned to face the remaining executives. His face had gone from pale to crimson. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about what just happened here, he said, voice tight with controlled fury. How did we get to a point where a department director could endanger lives and steal from this company while his superiors looked the other way? The CFO shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we had no indication. No indication, Sarah Martinez interrupted, spreading the audit reports across the table. These transfers went through your department. Either you knew or you're incompetent. Which is it? I should have felt satisfaction watching them squirm. Instead, I felt hollow. These people had enabled Cal for years, turned blind eyes to his behavior because he delivered results. Now they acted shocked, as if his corruption was news to them. Ms. Carr, the CEO addressed me directly. Would you walk us through the full timeline? I want every detail. For the next hour, I presented everything, not just the explosion, but years of systematic failures. Other maintenance requests denied, safety concerns dismissed. The culture of fear Cal had cultivated where speaking up meant career suicide. There are more, I said quietly. Other employees who've been silenced, threatened, pushed out for raising concerns. This isn't just about one machine failing. It's about a system that prioritized profits over people. The head of legal was frantically taking notes. We'll need statements from these employees. This could expose us to significant liability. We're already exposed, Sarah cut in. OSHA will be here by end of week. The Department of Labor is opening an investigation. And that's before any civil suits from injured workers. The room erupted into arguments, blame flying, excuses offered, everyone trying to distance themselves from the fallout. I sat quietly, watching it all unravel. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? Justice, accountability. But all I saw were people scrambling to save themselves. Enough! The CEO slammed his hand on the table. Ms. Carr, we need you back. Name your terms. Whatever Cal was paying you, we'll double it, triple it. You'll lead the entire maintenance division. Report directly to me. No. The word hung in the air. Everyone stared. I'm sorry? The CEO looked genuinely confused. This is your vindication. Your chance to make real changes. My vindication was preventing deaths despite your management's best efforts to cause them. My chance for real change was 2 months ago when I begged Cal to authorize critical repairs. I stood, gathering my materials. You want me back because you need someone to blame when OSHA finds more violations. Someone to point to and say, see, we've made changes. That's not. It is. I looked around the room, meeting each of their eyes. Every person at this table knew what Cal was like. You heard the jokes, saw the budget cuts, ignored the complaints. You enabled him because he made you money. And now you want me to clean up your mess while you pretend to be shocked by behavior you've tolerated for years. Sarah was the only one who didn't look away. She knew I was right. We can change, the CEO insisted. This is a wake-up call. We'll implement new policies, create oversight committees. You'll do the minimum required to avoid prosecution and lawsuits. In 6 months, when the heat dies down, you'll find new ways to cut corners, maybe more carefully. Maybe with better documentation. But the culture won't change because it starts at the top, and you've already shown what you value. I pulled out an envelope, placed it on the table. My resignation, effective immediately. My lawyer will coordinate with your legal team on the ongoing investigations. I'll cooperate fully with OSHA and any other regulatory bodies. You can't just leave, the CFO protested. We need your expertise to fix the damage. You needed my expertise 2 months ago. You ignored it. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and that 15% budget increase Cal requested? You might want to make it 50%. The equipment damage is just the beginning. When OSHA finishes their inspection, you'll be looking at systematic overhauls across the entire facility. Please? The CEO's composure finally cracked. What will it take to make you stay? I turned back one last time. A time machine. But since that's not possible, I'll settle for watching you explain to the DoD why their contract is about to be delayed by months. The last thing I saw before the door closed was their faces, the moment they realized the true cost of their negligence. Not just Cal's salary or the damaged equipment, but their reputation, their contracts, their careers. In the hallway, Sarah caught up with me. For what it's worth, you're right about everything. This place won't change overnight. It won't change at all. She handed me a business card. My personal number. When you're ready, I know several companies that would kill for someone with your integrity and expertise. Real companies, not whatever this place has become. I took the card, nodded my thanks, and walked out of Forgin Dynamics for the last time. Behind me, I could hear the boardroom erupting again, voices raised in panic and recrimination. Let them burn. I was done fighting their fires. The news of Cal's termination and my resignation spread through the industry like wildfire. My LinkedIn exploded with messages, job offers, interview requests, words of support from engineers who'd faced similar situations. The media picked up the story. Whistleblower exposes safety violations at defense contractor. Cal's name was mud, his career in manufacturing effectively over. But I didn't feel triumphant. I sat in my apartment, boxes of personal items from my office stacked in the corner, and felt empty. My phone rang. Miguel, the security guard. Ms. Emily, I wanted to thank you, my daughter. She heard what you did. She's in her second year of engineering school, was thinking of dropping out because of how they treat her. But seeing you stand up like that, she's staying. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me or Cal or even Forgin. It was about every young engineer who'd been told they were too sensitive about safety. Every employee who'd been gaslit into doubting their expertise. Every person who'd been silenced by someone with more power and less conscience. Over the next week, I received dozens of similar calls. Former Forgin employees sharing their own stories of Cal's abuse. Engineers from other companies describing identical situations. A network of professionals who'd been fighting alone, now realizing they weren't. Sarah Martinez called a week later. The board fired 3 executives. Legal found evidence they knew about Cal's budget diversions. The FBI is now involved. Good. The DoD pulled the contract. Forgin's stock dropped 40%. They're talking about bankruptcy. I waited for satisfaction that never came. What about the workers? The ones who had nothing to do with this? Severance packages are being negotiated. It's ugly. Emily, really ugly. But it needed to happen. 3 weeks after walking out, I sat down to write my final LinkedIn post about the experience. I gave them every opportunity to do the right thing, documentation, warnings, evidence, but they chose profits over people, ego over safety, cover-ups over accountability. When equipment worth $200,000 exploded, exactly as I'd predicted, they tried to blame me. They failed. To every engineer who's been ignored, dismissed, or silenced, document everything, trust your expertise, and never let them make you doubt what you know to be true. Safety isn't negotiable, lives aren't expendable, and speaking truth to power isn't insubordination, it's integrity. I didn't want to be a whistleblower. I wanted to be an engineer. But sometimes doing the right thing means burning bridges you'd rather cross. I regret nothing except this. I waited too long to act. Don't make my mistake. When you see something wrong, say something. And when they don't listen, make them. I'm done with companies that treat safety as an expense rather than an investment. Done with leaders who see employees as expendable resources. Done staying quiet to keep the peace. To those asking what's next, I don't know. But it won't involve compromising my values for a paycheck. Not anymore. The post went viral. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments from engineers sharing similar experiences. Industry publications requested interviews. Professional organizations invited me to speak about workplace safety and ethics. But I declined them all. I'd said what I needed to say. A month later, Jonah texted me, Forgin filed for bankruptcy. Cal was arrested for embezzlement. Thought you should know. I read the message twice, then deleted it. Cal was yesterday's problem. His destruction was complete, career ended, reputation destroyed, facing criminal charges. But he was just a symptom of a diseased system that valued metrics over morals. 6 weeks after leaving Forgin, I accepted a position with a small startup developing safety monitoring systems for industrial equipment, half the salary I could have commanded elsewhere. But the founder had lost his brother in a preventable, industrial accident. He understood what I was fighting for. My first day, he handed me a framed quote. In matters of conscience, the law of the majority has no place. Gandhi. Your office, he said simply. Your team is waiting to meet you. They've all read your story. They're here because they believe in doing things right. As I hung that frame on my new office wall, I thought about Cal, probably meeting with lawyers and scrambling to avoid prison. About the Fortune executives, watching their golden parachutes evaporate. About the board members, their reputations forever tainted by association. I'd warned them, clear as day, in writing, with signatures. They just never thought the cute little tech girl would be the one to bring it all crashing down. Their mistake. My liberation. I got to work. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced a similar situation at work? How did you handle it? Let's discuss in the comments. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share more stories with you. Until next time.